Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the next episode in my makeup and movies series where I'm going to be using some new makeup while telling you all about the 6 films that I have seen at the cinema this month. So I have the Charlotte Tilbury Unreal Skin Foundation Stick, which I'm this time going to be using alongside a matte liquid foundation to see how it works as a sort of mixing multitasking product. I have a Rare Beauty liquid highlighter, which isn't new, but is new to me. I've never tried these before. I have the new Summer Koi brush set from Sonia G, which I'm going to be using with the Natasha Denona Golden palette. I also have another product that isn't new, but is new to me, which is an Hourglass single bronzer that I picked up. I've got the new RMS powder, one of the new reformulated Nars blushes, the new Max Stack brown chestnut shade of mascara, and a new shade that I haven't used on camera yet of these Lisa Eldridge Baume Embrace lip balms. So if you want to see all of this new makeup in action, as well as hear all of my thoughts on these 6 films that I saw throughout June, then keep watching. Okay guys, grab a snack. I've got a protein shake because I haven't had time to eat breakfast yet. That's the kind of day I'm having. So somehow we have 6 films. I doubted myself then because I don't know how I've managed 6 films this month because we were out of the country for 2 weeks. So I have been absolutely all over the films this month and there have been so many amazing films. I have 3 10 out of 10s to tell you about today, and I also have, I think, my lowest score of the year so far. Certainly the film that I probably enjoyed the least so far this year. So there were highs and there were lows, as you would expect when you see 6 films. They can't all be 10 out of 10s, but I have to say it was an absolute blinder, a belter of a month for the films that I saw. And it shows no signs of slowing down because I have seen so many amazing trailers while I've been seeing these films. I've seen so many films coming up that I'm really excited for, that I cannot wait to see. So it shows no signs of slowing down and I love to see it. I'm excited about what's to come. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the films I saw this month first, for goodness sake. So we're starting off with Bad Boys, the new Bad Boys film. Ride or Die, I believe was its full title. Is this the third? The third Bad Boys? I've seen all of them. I know it doesn't sound like it. I can't say I'm a huge fan. I feel like they've got progressively worse. So I think I really enjoyed the first one. They're not my typical type of films. It's kind of an action comedy blend, mashup, if you will. So it's not really my go-to type of film or genre. You guys know me, I love horrors and thrillers. Those are my kind of go-to. Crime, psychological thrillers are my absolute favorites. So this isn't like my top #1 genre. By the way, I'm starting off with one of my holiday brushes from Sonia G because this new set doesn't have a big fluffy brush, which is what I always like to start off with. I think this new set is a perfect companion set. You know, if you have a sort of basics eyeshadow brush from Sonia G already, these brushes are a perfect companion, but it's not as all-encompassing as some of her previous sets. So it doesn't have every single brush that you or that I would need for the way that I do my eyeshadow. I'm kind of missing a big fluffy brush, but luckily I have many of them from her already. So I'm just using this holiday brush to start off with, and then I will pick up that new set. But back to Bad Boys. So this film, it stars, if you're not familiar with the franchise, it stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. They're a little duo of policemen, okay? I would say I do think you need to see the other films first. There's definitely some sort of inside jokes. There's definitely some just elements of the film that I think if you haven't seen the others, you might miss out on. So I would say that you know, this is one of those sort of sequels where you do kind of miss something if you haven't seen the films that go before. This was definitely my least favourite of the franchise. I'm going to give it a 7. It seems high, and let me tell you, I was on like a 5 or 6 3/4 of the way through the film. It's kind of slow to start, and I don't know what's happened to Martin Lawrence, okay? I don't like to be mean to people. You know me, I like to hype people up. I don't like to criticise, especially when we're talking about something that I myself cannot do. I'm not an actor, okay? I can't act to save my life. So far be it for me to be someone who can criticise someone else's acting. But I just don't remember him being quite so, I don't know whether it's annoying or like too much, just over the top. I just found his character verging on just bizarre, and not in a good sort of entertaining way. I just felt like he went a little left field with the character in this film. I feel like he was you know, he was a bit silly in the initial films. He's never played sort of a serious character in the Bad Boys films, but he just became like unhinged and like irritating and just too much, and it just felt a little out there for me with the acting from Martin Lawrence. The jokes weren't landing, they weren't funny, and it was just, yeah, it wasn't great. And then sort of 3/4 of the way through, saved very much by the ensemble cast and Will Smith, who is, you know, always solid unless he's at an award show. But I'd say like the last quarter of the film definitely improved, bumped things up. Martin Lawrence seemed to calm down slightly and be less annoying and weird. And it definitely improved as the film went on. So that was good. But yeah, still not my favourite, still not one that I would sort of recommend running out and seeing at all costs, or like prioritising in amongst the other films that are kind of available to us this month. It was just okay, not particularly funny, but it did end well. There were some good action scenes and some good sort of storylines going on towards the end. But yeah, kind of slow to start. A bit of odd acting from Martin Lawrence at the beginning. So yeah, the highest I could give it was a 7. And like I said, 3/4 of the way through, we were more a 6. The next film I saw this month was the new Inside Out film. And we actually saw this in 3D. And I think, from what my children tell me, it was their first time seeing a 3D film at the cinema. So 100% watch the original before you go and watch this one. The characters, the storyline very much follows on from the original, and we absolutely love the original. It's one of my all-time favourite children's films. It's a very fluffy, sweet, touching, but still very funny in lots of places film. And I feel like it's on the more innocent side of children's films. I don't love these flippin' children's films that for some reason always have to include some kind of real trauma and like disturbing events. I don't know why we do that with children's films. Can we just have some children's films that are just fun and cute and happy? Like, why do I understand you want a bit of a journey, you know, some ups and downs, sure, some trials and tribulations. But we saw a film a couple of years ago that was a children's film about werewolves, and literally in the first 5 minutes of the film, the werewolf's dad falls off a cliff and seemingly dies. What a fun day out for the kids. I just really don't feel the need to traumatise my children through the medium of film. You know, I want to go to the cinema and it just be a fun time. And I feel like these Inside Out films, both of them, are just what a children's film should be, you know? Nothing terrifying, nothing disturbing, nothing life-altering in a bad way, you know? So that's what I really like about these films. Good, wholesome fun. Now the second one, the main character has definitely grown up. She's more sort of tween to teen years, so new emotions have arrived. Yes, they have. I'm currently experiencing this in my own life. So I'd say this one is definitely a bit, not grittier, necessarily, but it's a bit more substance to it because, you know, the girl in the main character in the story is going through puberty. She's going to her first camp away. She's got friendship problems, all those things that sort of start to come as you grow up. So her life and her emotions and what she's dealing with are a mess. A jumble and chaos is happening, but it still stays really light, very funny throughout, always a lot of action. The 3D was well worth going 3D because there's some really magical moments, and my children were absolutely mesmerized by the 3D. They really enjoyed that. We all absolutely loved it. My children were like, this is an absolute 10 out of 10. That's what they wanted me to give it. I'm giving it a 9.5. And I know that seems harsh. And I did have it down as a 10. Many times I went back and forth between a 9 and a 10. I just think I didn't love it as much as the first one, which was an absolute like all-time fave 10 out of 10 for me. So I had to give it slightly less than a 10 because I did prefer the first one. And some of these new emotions are like wildly annoying. Like I could quite happily just kick sadness out. She drives me nuts. I wanted her gone in that first film. She was the bane of my life and I wanted her out. And there's another emotion that I equally despise in this new film, which made it just slightly annoying, and I would have loved her to have had less screen time. So yeah, for me, that just slightly took the edge off. You know, when comparing the two, I think I slightly loved the first one a little bit more, and therefore I had to take half a point off. You know, you got to make these separations. I also just could not allow there to be 4 10s. 3 is already ridiculous. And when I was looking at the other 10s, I would have said this one I enjoyed slightly less than the 3 that were straight 10s, no questions asked. So next up we have our first solid 10 out of 10 of the month, and this is The Watched. Oh, it was good. Now, first of all, I must inform you that in the US, this film is called The Watchers, but in the UK, it's called The Watched. And I love this little detail because this film, so it's a Shyamalan film, but it's not M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan produced this film, but his daughter, Ishana, is actually directing. This is her directorial debut alongside her dad producing this film, which I loved. When I first saw and read about this film, I just saw Shyamalan and I assumed that it was M. Night, but it's actually his daughter and him collaborating on a film, so I loved that. I am an absolute Shyamalan stan, okay? I have loved every single one of his films. If his name is on a film, it's, you know, always a 10 out of 10 for me. I just absolutely love them. Even the ones that other people think are unhinged or insane, like The Village or Old. I love them. I love them all. I feel like you either love his films or you do not want to know what is going on, especially the stranger ones. You know, they have a bit of a scale, don't they? You know, they have something like Sixth Sense, which most people enjoyed and it wasn't quite so insane. And then you have something like, you know, The Village, which is a lot more bizarre, or Old, which is a lot more bizarre. So he has a scale as to how crazy and bonkers his films get, and it seems like the slightly less bonkers ones are more mass appealing, but I love them all. I absolutely love them. I never miss one of his films. If it has his name on it, like I said, I'm first in line. And this one I was super excited about. I'd already seen a trailer for this film last month and I just loved how it was really vague. You really didn't know what was going on. They didn't really give anything away, which I love. And just the trailer on its own was really already like building the suspense and the anticipation for me. It was such a good trailer. So this film is about, it focuses on the main character is Mina, played by Dakota Fanning, who is amazing. Always been amazing. Always loved her. Always had the most incredible acting chops. I vividly remember her sort of coming across her properly for the first time as her like proper acting role in the War of the Worlds film. She was unbelievable. Like for such a young child, her performance in that with like the utter terror was amazing. So whenever I see her now, I think, wow, I know that she's got the acting chops, if ever anyone did. So she plays the main character, Mina. So as always, I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I'm just going to try and give you a little bit of insight into what the film is about so that you can decide, you know, whether you want to see or not, but I'm not going to spoil anything plot-wise for you. So Mina one day is taking a parrot, that's right, a parrot, to a customer who's purchased the parrot, and this takes her on a journey. She gets in her car, she's taking the parrot, she doesn't know where she's going, she's in the middle of sort of rural Ireland, and she ends up in some woods. Her car just like breaks down, and of course her mobile signal is gone, and she finds herself in these woods, lost, seemingly alone. But fairly quickly she comes across some other people, okay, and they are telling her, you need to get inside, we need to get you inside before darkness comes. And they take her to this sort of bunker, let's call it, like a concrete bunker with one glass wall, okay. And every night she is told by these people, these strangers, this selection of strangers, that every night these things, these beings, these creatures that they don't know what they are, they've never seen them, but every night they come and they watch them through the glass. They don't have to do anything, they don't have to perform, they just want to watch us living and going about our business, about our day or our night. And then when the sun rises, these things go away, and then we are safe to go out into the woods, and you know, we can go outside and it's safe. But as soon as it starts to go dark, we need to come back into the bunker, because if we're outside, you know, it's dangerous basically. But in the daytime we're safe, but you can't get out of the woods. The woods won't let you leave. You'll never find your way out. Basically, they've been trying for varying different lengths of time. So some of these people have been in the bunker or in the woods for a few weeks, some have been there for many months, some longer, and they've never managed to leave the woods or to be found or anything like that. So that's what they've been doing. They've been doing this every night. These, who knows what these things are that come every night, just to watch them. We don't know what they are, but as long as we just stay in here and we abide by the rules, because there are a few rules that they are and aren't allowed to do, then everything is fine. So this is why I love the fact that they called this film The Watched in the UK and The Watchers in the US, because it just sort of adds to that whole premise of the film and that sort of spookiness of the film, that there's the Watchers and the Watched, and we're the Watched and the Americans are the Watchers. What are you guys up? Are they trying to tell us something? So that's the premise of this film. I flipping loved this so much. It's got all of the elements of a Shyamalan film that I absolutely love. So much suspense, so much mystery, so much unknown. You never really know what's going on, why, what are these things? And just the way that a Shyamalan, I have to remember it wasn't M. Night, it's his daughter, but these people, these Shyamalans, know how to build tension and suspense and mystery and unknown like nobody else. It was so suspenseful, and there's just so much mystery, you know. I absolutely loved it. And it's always like with all of his films, there's always twists at the end that you didn't see coming, as much as you think you know where this is going. And I did think I knew where it was going, and I wasn't far off, but there's just always a little extra bit that they know that you would never have guessed, you know what I mean? And it was just so good. I absolutely loved it. Just these little glimpses, he's always just giving us a little hint of something, he's teasing us. It was epic. I loved it. If you like Shyamalan, you're gonna love this one as well. 10 out of 10, no questions asked. Now the next film is the one that I warned you about, guys. This is The Bike Riders, and this I think was the film that I enjoyed the least so far this year. I know, I'm so sorry about it. And I'm gonna do a little bit of what I like to call a sandwich, okay? We're gonna start off with some good, there were some good things, okay? There were some good elements. We're gonna start off with some good bits, then I'm gonna give you the cold hard truth, And yeah, we're going to finish up with me trying to be kind. Okay, that's what we're going to try and do here. So the Bike Riders, this is a film that focuses on a biker gang, a gang of bikers who really are just sort of a brotherhood. They don't really get up to a lot of mischief. They're fairly well behaved. When I say a gang, they're not like really a criminal gang. They're really like a men's club who love riding their bikes together. And yes, some of them are a little naughty. They do like to get into some tussles, but for the most part, you know, they're fairly decent people. So the film is almost completely told through the eyes of one of the bikers' wives, and she is doing an interview with a man who is a photographer and has been following the bike riders around, doing a story. He's writing a book about them, and she is talking to him basically about her life with the bike riders, how she came across them, how she met her husband, and that's kind of how the film is followed. So the cast in this film was extremely stellar. The wife of the bike riders, who's kind of the narrator of the story, is Jodie Comer. We then have Austin Butler and Tom Hardy. Those are kind of the three main characters. And yeah, it just follows their lives in this biker gang, how it came about, what they get up to, and the varying events of their lives. And I would say that all three of those actors did absolute sterling jobs. I thought all three of them were brilliant in the various roles that they had, and that they worked unbelievably well with what they were given, okay? The problem is they were given next to nothing to work with, okay? So Jodie Comer's character, given that it is, you know, the main character that you see mostly and hear from the entire way through the film, is the world's most annoying woman, okay? She's so irritating and annoying in every way, shape or form. It's almost unbearable. So that's the first problem, is that the person that we hear and see the most is wildly irritating. That's problem number one. And Jodie played it unbelievably because she was making my skin crawl with irritation. But yeah, the character was extremely irritating and annoying. So that was problem number one. Problem number two, and the biggest unforgivable problem for me of this entire film, which is what made it such a hard, slow watch and so unsatisfying and so hard to be in any way sort of involved in, was the total and utter lack of any character development whatsoever. Okay, the Austin Butler character is this really sort of dark, twisty, unhappy, disturbed man. Okay, he's obviously got a lot wrong with him. He's seriously flawed and he has many, many issues, okay? And yet we don't really know why. We don't know anything really about him. Everything is so surface level. There is no background. There's no character development whatsoever to speak of. There's no understanding of where these people are coming from, what their motivations are, their relationships to each other. They all have these potentially very complex feelings for each other and relationships with each other, but we never ever get under the surface of any of it. You know, the relationship between Austin's character and Jodie's character is literally never scratches the surface. They're married, and seemingly Austin's character, who we're told literally couldn't care less about anything, his own life, anyone, anything he's ever done other than his bike. Yet he ends up getting married to someone who we're told he loves, and that Jodie's character loves him too, but we don't really see any of that. We don't really see any of their relationship develop other than like the night they meet, or why they got married, or how they feel about each other. We literally know nothing about any of these people really, other than the very surface level that we're given. And that's a real shame, because I feel like it could have been 100 times better. You know, the premise of the film is great. I must blend my chin because it's just out there sparkling away right now. And it's just so disappointing. It was so disappointing. I was like, I don't really, you know, the storyline was pretty good. The plot was, you know, enjoyed the way that it went and the flow of the storyline, but the problem is there's just nothing, they're giving us nothing with regards to the characters, their personalities, their backgrounds, their motivations, and so you can't get attached to anyone, and the character we kind of hear from the most is wildly annoying, and so you just never really get that involved and invested in any of their lives because we know basically nothing about any of them. So for me, this was a 5. I feel like the entire film tried to rest on the general sexiness of Austin Butler, and he just wasn't quite sexy enough for that to be all the film was about, you know? Him just rocking up and smouldering in the backdrop, sure, it was a good time, but was it enough to prop up this whole film without me, you know, knowing a single other thing about him other than that he is like really mad at the world and we don't know why? No, it wasn't. I needed a lot more. I needed to know at least like one thing about somebody. So yeah, I was disappointed and it was a 5. But going from the worst to, I think, the best film I saw this last month, A Quiet Place Day 1. This was so flipping good. So good. So if you haven't seen the other Quiet Place films, I won't tell you you're going to have a problem because this is a prequel. So this is day 1. This is the start of everything. If you have seen the other Quiet Place films, obviously you'll be absolutely fine. If you haven't, you will also be fine because this is the prequel. So I think you absolutely could watch this one and then watch the others in that sequence. So yeah, you don't need to have seen the others. This is absolutely a standalone story, and as it's a prequel, you know, you don't need to know anything from the others before you see this. I love this franchise. I've loved both the first and the second of these films, and this prequel was no different. It was fantastic. I love these sort of gripping thriller films. They are so good. Lupita Nyong'o is unbelievable in it. Also Joseph Quinn, who you may know from Stranger Things. Both of them did an epic job, okay? The only issue I had with this film is it made me want a cat. And not only did it make me want a cat, it also led me to believe that if I get a cat, it's going to follow me around everywhere, even during an alien invasion. It's going to allow me to cuddle it, to put it in my clothes and my body with me at all times. And it's even going to go for a swim with me. And I don't know how accurate that is for most cats, but that's what I've now been led to believe. So watch this space. I'm going to have some cats soon. If you aren't familiar with the Quiet Place franchise, if you will, this is about an invasion of alien creatures. So the first 2 films, they start and the invasion has already happened, and you just sort of starts with, this is how the world is now. These beings are here, they live here, and this is how we go about our day. The thing about these beings are they have exceptional hearing, unbelievable hearing. So the whole world has to go about their lives in silence, not making a peep. Not a sound, not a squeak, especially not a pipsqueak. That's where the world is in the first and second films. This film centers on the start of the invasion, how it happened, how everyone learned what these things can and can't do. So they have unbelievable hearing, but blind as bats. Can't see a thing. You could be stood right in front of them. As long as you're quiet, they can't tell you're there. They can't even read the top line of the poster at the opticians. That's how bad it is. So in this film, it basically starts off with Lupita's character is in a hospice. She has like terminal cancer and she is residing in a sort of shared hospice type of setup for people with like end stage cancers. And she's gone on a lovely day out to the city when the invasion begins. And it's basically all about her trying to get herself and her cat, who, yes, she took to the theatre, apparently that's allowed. And it's all about her basically trying to get to safety away from these creatures, whatever they are, trying to figure out how to stay safe, etc. It was so good. I mean, if you're saying like Bike Riders just didn't have any character development, this had enough for both films, okay? It was so good. Both main actors were unbelievable. It was gripping, it was suspenseful. By the way, I nearly screamed about 5 times in this film. It's obviously very jump scary. One of these jump scares, I'm a seasoned professional when it comes to jump scares. I know they're coming. I always know. I'm very, very finely tuned. I know, I'm very experienced. I know when they're coming. You know, if someone looks in a mirror, not the first time, probably not the second time, but the third time they look back when they're opening, you know what's coming, okay? I don't fall for these very often. One of these was so unexpected. I was in the cinema by myself with other strangers, about 15 other strangers in the middle of the day, and literally how a scream didn't come out of my mouth, I'll never know. I think it was like the shock silenced me, and I didn't scream, but I did do something like this. But luckily it was quiet enough and the noise on the screen was enough that I don't think anyone heard, but it nearly got me. I love this. This was epic. Straight 10 out of 10. It was everything I wanted from this film. I didn't even miss Emily Blunt, who I thought I would very much miss, but I'm so sorry, Emily. I was fine without you. And the final film that I saw this month, another family film, they're calling it. Let's talk about IF. IF stands for Imaginary Friend, okay? IFs. So you think this is a children's film? I beg to differ. Now, as I've said before, I don't like to give spoilers because obviously you guys want to see these films. You might not have seen them yet. You might want to decide whether you want to see them or not. I'm going to give you slightly more information about this film because I think the parents need it. I think there are some certain elements, some certain things in this film, about this film, that parents taking young, potentially sensitive children to should know happen before you go and see it. I wish I had, okay? So I'm going to tell you slightly more about what happens in this film than I would usually, just so that you're forewarned, because I think parents should be. This film is not like Inside Out 2. It is not a fluffy, carefree, happy-go-lucky type of film, okay? I bawled like a baby. This film actually fully ruined my life, I would say. It brutalised me. My daughter at one point took one look at me and laid her head on my shoulder and started patting my arm. That's how many tears were falling from my face. I was bawling. I was scarred emotionally, and I was in no way prepared. This film is a you. Where's the need, you know? I was just trying to enjoy my Sunday with my daughter. So very luckily for me, only myself and my daughter went to see this film. And I say that because my son is younger and much more sensitive to anything scary and also anything sad. So my daughter is 10, we went to see this together. My son luckily had a party to go to, so we went and did mummy-daughter day at the cinema, and I'm very relieved. I actually, having seen it, would not take my son to see this film. If your child is super sensitive, I wouldn't recommend it. If your child has lost a parent, I probably also wouldn't recommend it, especially if it was recent. If your child has lost someone or has some kind of connection to cancer, I also wouldn't recommend it. I feel like there was a lot in this film, and really it didn't feel like a children's film to me. I know that all of the sort of fluffy characters and the ifs who are, you know, really fun childlike characters with, you know, animals or like funny faces and voices and things like that makes it feel like, oh, it's for kids. But it was a lot deeper than that, you know. It was a lot deeper, a lot more complex, a lot sadder, and dealing with a lot grittier, harder topics that for a lot of children I think would be too much and too sad and too upsetting and terrifying. Okay, my daughter, she doesn't scare easily when it comes to films and things like that. She doesn't get scared. She's watched all of the Harry Potter films, which can be quite scary, especially for young children, with never batting an eyelid. So she doesn't scare easily. The cast in this film is unbelievable. I didn't even realise the vast majority of these people were in the film because they play ifs. But the cast, Ryan Reynolds is physically in the film and has his own human face. John Krasinski and Kaylee Fleming, who is Judith from The Walking Dead, was the child actor in the film. And John Krasinski are basically the only people whose faces you physically see. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is a main character if, so you do see and hear her and you can tell it's her, as well as Steve Carell, also clearly present in the film. The rest of these names I had no idea were in this film. Blake Lively, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Bradley Cooper, Emily Blunt. Never had a single clue any of those people were in this film. But apparently they were, and there were far more huge A-lister Hollywood stars in this film that I had no idea were there because they played ifs, but very funny. So this film is about imaginary friends. This young girl who has lost her mother, and they do show her visiting her mother who has cancer in hospital and then her passing away. And then they don't show her passing away, just to be clear, but it's clear that she has passed away from cancer. And then the girl is staying with her grandmother because her dad is also in hospital and we don't really know what's going on there. She does visit him briefly multiple times throughout the film, but she's staying with her grandmother and it seems like her father is potentially passing away. We just don't really know what's going on with him until quite near the end. So this poor young girl is lost on her own and clearly going through a lot of trauma, staying with her grandmother, and she comes across an if by accident. So you're not supposed to be able to see them yourself. You can only see your own if. And then when you grow up, you just won't be able to see them anymore. So basically, she comes across her neighbour who, for some reason or another, we don't know why, can see ifs, as well as the young girl played by Kaylee can also see all of the ifs all of a sudden. And we don't know why she can see them either, but suddenly she can. So here's where the scary part comes in. One of these ifs is very much like something out of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And the first few times when she comes across this if, it's like hiding and like sneaking up, and it's like in the dark. And my daughter was terrified. It was like a horror film, okay? She was terrified. And she literally was like, oh my God. And she didn't get upset, but it really scared her, okay? So again, if your child is easily scared or sensitive, they won't like that part. But once she meets the ifs and they turn out they're harmless and they're really lovely, then it's all fine. So, you know, make your own decision for your child. The thing is about this film, it's a beautiful film. There's just so much heartwarming loveliness to it, but there is a lot of gritty, gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching stuff in there as well. Like I said, I bawled like a baby. There was a lot of sadness and a lot of trauma going on in this girl's life. So it didn't really feel like a children's film to me. As much as the ifs are fun and like children's characters, it didn't feel like a children's film so much as something like Inside Out would. So be warned. That being said, I flipping loved it. This is another one where the trailer didn't do it justice. I saw the trailer of this and both myself and my children had no interest in seeing it. My son was terrified just from the trailer because of the creepy if character Phoebe Waller-Bridge plays. He didn't like that, even the look of it in broad daylight, so he was out already. But it just didn't do it justice. I had no interest in seeing this film based off the trailer, and it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. It's very funny. There's a lot of substance to it. It's very, very moving. I wasn't expecting to come out and need a lie down in a dark room because I was so depressed. But it was, you know, it does have a nice happy ending. So there is that to hang on to. Don't worry about it. It does have a happy ending, but it still is quite sad at the heart of it. It's very, very deep. It's very beautiful. It's got a lot of beauty to it, a lot of fun with the characters, but I would say a lot of young or sensitive or easily scared children, it won't be for them. So make your own decisions, but I loved it. It was a 10 out of 10. My daughter gave it a 10 out of 10. She recovered very quickly from the terrifying appearance of the if, and we both loved it. So I did see some unbelievable other trailers that I'm very excited about. I've already talked to you guys about Twisters. That hasn't come out here yet, so I still haven't seen that yet. Another trailer that I saw, I think it was when I was watching The Watched, was for another M. Night Shyamalan film that is coming up called The Trap or Trap. I can't remember if it has a the or not. But the trailer for this was epic. I was shook to my core and I'm now beside myself to go and see that. That looks unbelievable. This week I'm going to see Kinds of Kindness, which I basically know nothing about, but that's the next film on my list. Let's quickly cover my thoughts on some of this makeup. This is my first time trying this RMS Beauty powder, and I also used their concealer as my eyeshadow primer today, which I really like the amount of coverage, really nice and buildable, but feels very thin, perfect for an eyeshadow base. And I used this under my eyes today, really expecting not to like it because it's more of a luminous powder, and I typically will use, you know, a lighter sort of matte powder under my eyes, but I think it looks really, really good. Really nice and smooth, set everything beautifully. The Rare Beauty highlighter that is new to me, that looks gorgeous. I think the colour is slightly dark for my skin tone, but it worked beautifully. It blended really nicely and didn't cause any issues with the other powder products that I used. I really like this bronzer from Hourglass. I definitely think I'm going to get the full size of this. The tone is really nice. I always think Hourglass bronzers are going to be so orange, but the reason I picked this one up is because it looked a lot more neutral than the other shades available, and I think it's a beautiful shade. The Natasha Denona palette, I've just absolutely loved every look that I've done with it so far. I think this is the 4th or 5th time of using it, and I just love it. I love every shade in here. It's right up my street. The formulas are amazing. I love the MAC Stack mascara. This is the brown shade, Chestnut. I think it almost pretty much looks black, but I really like this mascara. I love the original. I love a brown. It's just slightly softer this than the black, which I like. I appreciate that it's not so light. It doesn't look dramatic. It's a beautiful, very dark, rich brown colour. The Unreal Skin stick from Charlotte Tilbury, I don't think I will use as a standalone foundation very much because it is just so subtle. It's very, very subtle, barely any coverage. And if I'm going for something with, you know, very little coverage, I probably wouldn't reach for a stick over a liquid. That's just my preference when it comes to formulas. So I couldn't see myself using it as a standalone foundation very often, but I do really like using it with a more matte foundation like the Tom Ford, like I did today, because it definitely gives a bit of a boost of glow. And because it's taken the edge off the coverage that you might need, you don't need to use as much foundation, so you can end up with a really nice bit of glow through a very light layer of foundation with a bit more coverage. So that's how I'm really enjoying using that stick. It's very glowy and beautiful, especially when mixed in with a bit more of a higher coverage foundation. It's gorgeous. The Nars blush that I used today was Gina, and I think it's gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful, soft, subtle peach. It is a more matte blush, and you guys know that I prefer a glowy blush, but I think this is gorgeous. Really pretty, perfect shade. Now, these new brushes from Sonia are the most beautiful brushes I think I've ever seen in my entire life. That detail, it's just truly stunning. I will never get over them. They're so gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. As I said when I was using them, I feel like this is a perfect companion set. I love Sonia's eyeshadow sets. I've got several of them. And the 2 previous sets that I was gifted, so they're Traditions Keyaki and then the Special Holiday set, both, in my opinion, were complete, comprehensive eyeshadow sets. You could easily do any eyeshadow look with the brushes in those sets and not need any other brushes. This one I feel like is more of a companion set because it's got these sort of extra special additional shapes to what you might not already have that are very clever. They serve perfect little jobs. They've got a really nice fluffier crease brush that is much smaller and more detailed. We've got a smaller like packing lid brush, perfect for hooded eyes or just smaller eyes or just more detailed work, but that you need a flatter brush for. We've got a really nice detailed, more narrow, almost pencil brush, and then this really nice densely packed sort of oval shape that is ideal for me for the outer V and to really pack some smokier shadow in there, and just these stunning handles. So these work so beautifully as like additions to what I already have. But like today, I wanted, you know, a fluffier, bigger brush to go in initially. And there isn't sort of a larger crease brush or a lighter, fluffier transition brush in here. So if you want one brush set that will do everything, I would go more for her Traditions Keyaki set, because that is just has absolutely everything you could ever need. These are more like very special but fill gaps as a perfect companion set to what you might already own. So they are just stunning, but don't expect to have every brush you could ever need or want between, you know, because there are only 4 brushes in the set. It is a smaller set. But there you have it. Those are all of the films that I've seen over the last month. Please let me know if you've been to the cinema. What did you see? What would you give it out of 10? We love a ranking around here. Please let me know your favourite film that you've seen in the last few weeks. If you have any recommendations for me, let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.